In the last 4 months, I have spent over $1,000 sourcing inventory on ThredUp to resell on Poshmark. In that time frame, I have bought 41 pieces on ThredUp with an average cost of goods per piece at $25. Now, this is way more than my usual thrifted average cost of goods, which hovers around $6. And so I wanted to give an update on how it's been going and whether or not it's actually been profitable. Since I started this 4 months ago, I've sold 21 out of the 41 pieces that I purchased, and I've already earned back almost my entire investment. Technically, I have $19 left that I haven't earned back, and I still have 20 pieces left to sell. So I think that so far it's been a pretty successful experiment, given that I am just $19 away from being profitable, earning back my entire investment, and I still have 20 pieces left to sell. So today I wanted to just explain to you how I source on ThredUp, what types of pieces that I'm buying on there, and most importantly, some of the mistakes that I've made along the way so that you can avoid them. Now, for the rest of the video, I'm going to have a little bit of an outfit change because I actually filmed it at a different time. So I'll see you in the next clip. Before I get into it, I just want to quickly introduce myself if you're new here. My name's Laura, and I was a full-time reseller for 2 years. And then I quit to go back to school to get my MBA. And now I'm restarting my reselling business from scratch, and I'm sharing my insights here with you because I'm doing it with much more of a data-driven approach given my new business knowledge. Today, I want to show you exactly how I found these items on ThredUp, what's working and what isn't working, because I've definitely also had a few fails along the way. And I want to teach you the rules that I follow when I'm trying to source online, because they're different than the rules that I follow when I'm thrifting. I want to just give a little bit of context as to why I've started sourcing on ThredUp and why I recommend this as an option for resellers. As much as I love thrifting, and genuinely I do love it, it's my favorite part of being a reseller, there is one huge limitation, and that is that you can only thrift when you're able to physically go out and do so. ThredUp, on the other hand, gives me access to inventory 24/7. So I can source while I'm on my lunch break, or while I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, or while I'm laying in bed scrolling on my phone. And the other huge upside is that I can spend a lot more time researching the items before I buy them to decide if I really think it's worth it. Whereas in the thrift store, sometimes like the sell service is bad and I can't necessarily check comps as thoroughly as I want to, or I can't find the exact style name of the piece in the thrift store. So I do like that ThredUp also gives me more time to vet pieces before I even buy them. The third major benefit to sourcing on ThredUp is that typically you can return things. There are some things that are final sale, but typically with ThredUp, you can return pieces if you get them and they're not what you expected, or the condition is flawed, or you just do further research and realize that they're not going to sell for what you thought. And this is a huge benefit because for me in my thrift stores, you cannot return anything. So sometimes I will thrift something and then I'll come home and realize it has a hole and I just have to redonate it, which is a huge bummer. So I do also appreciate the option to return. There are also limitations to sourcing with ThredUp, and one major limitation is that it's more expensive. And you're not going to be able to necessarily find things for the same price that you can find them in the thrift store. So you have to be a lot more selective, and you really have to set boundaries for yourself so that you don't end up just spending a ton of money and seeing no return on that investment. And of course, when you're spending more money, there is more risk involved. If you're spending $50 on something, there's a lot more risk to holding on to that piece versus my thrifted pieces, which are $7 or $8, and it's not as big of a deal to me if they don't sell. So before I get into some of my specific wins and not so great experiences with ThredUp sourcing, I want to talk about what my specific framework is. And this is really the key lesson of this video, because I do not evaluate retail arbitrage inventory the same way that I evaluate thrifted inventory. I do still think that ThredUp kind of falls into the category of retail arbitrage because you are buying something on another retailer and then trying to sell it for more, and your margin is the difference in prices. When I go thrifting, my criteria for whether or not I want to buy a thrifted item is whether I think I can make $20 profit on that piece. Most of my thrifted inventory is about $7 or $8 on average. So generally that means that when I buy something, I am evaluating whether I think I can sell it for $35 or more, because after Poshmark fees, if you sell something for $35, you get $28 in earnings. You take away $8 as my cost of goods, that would leave me with $20 in profit. But once inventory starts costing $20, $30, $40, even up to $80 per piece, the rules change to me, because I will no longer be happy with only making $20 profit if I've invested $80 into something. For example, if I spend $50 on an item, then I want to double my money on that piece. So that means that that piece will have to sell for at least $125 in order for me to double my money on Poshmark, because after Poshmark takes its 20% fee, I would make $100, and that would give me $50 in profit. And the more expensive that inventory becomes, the more important opportunity cost becomes. Because the way I see it, an $80 item that is sitting in my closet for 3 months didn't just cost me $80. It also cost me everything else that I could have bought and sold for that $80 within that time frame. Like, if all of my thrifted inventory is costing $8 on average, and I could have bought 10 pieces for the same $80 that I bought this one piece for, and each of those 10 pieces sold for $35 within this 3-month time frame, I would have made $200 profit already. So that's why, to me, I require a much higher threshold for my retail arbitrage pieces, and I need them to sell for a lot more money so that I can always double my investment. Okay, so how do I actually find these pieces on ThredUp? One way, which is a way that I've seen talked about on a lot of other reseller channels here on YouTube, is through the assorted brands strategy. And this strategy essentially comes down to going onto ThredUp, sorting by assorted brands and newest, which I think is important. I always look at the newest inventory in assorted brands, because older inventory has already been picked through, most likely by other resellers. And then I'll just scroll through and try and find things that I think look high quality that are lower priced. In assorted brands, ThredUp typically prices everything around $20 or so, because they're not branded and therefore they don't command as high of a price as if they were sorted by the correct brand. And I'll give an example of a success that I had using this strategy. So one of my best finds using assorted brands was this pair of Saint Paradiso shorts, like this really cute boxer shorts. I bought these on ThredUp for $16, and then they sold on eBay within a week for $55, making my earnings $40, thus clearing my doubling my money threshold, because I made $40, doubling my money would have been $32. And I've used this strategy several other times, and I found some really amazing stuff using this strategy. So I definitely recommend trying it out if you haven't already. I will say that it does require some patience and time, because you have to really figure out what's even worth like clicking on. ThredUp does show you the brand tag. So if there's a brand tag available, I think it really helps, because you can actually look up the brand and figure out more about the piece. I also recommend screenshotting things and running them through Google Lens to try and see if you can find what the exact style name is, and then you can look up the piece that way. Overall, looking through assorted brands does take more time, but you can find some really good stuff there. I found some really cool pieces that I'm excited to share in future videos once they've sold and I can tell you the full story. My other method, which honestly I have used even more than assorted brands, is just by looking for things that are underpriced. And again, this can take time and it's not always the easiest, but you can really find some great stuff using this strategy too. I keep a running list of brands that I know will sell for high price points. So for dresses, things that will sell for $150 plus. For swimwear, it's probably more like $80 plus. And I'm always looking for these pieces on ThredUp. You can actually create saved searches on ThredUp. So whenever something is listed in one of these brands, then ThredUp will send me a notification and I can go look at it and see if it's something that I think will sell. And one way to build this type of list for yourself is just to go on Poshmark, sort by sold listings and then just in, And that way you'll see things that sold pretty quickly. And then sort by price. So whatever the price point is that you're looking for. So for me, usually, like I said, for dresses, I'm sorting by $150 plus. And then I'm looking for things on ThredUp that cost $50 or less, because I know that if it costs $50 or less and it's selling for $150 plus, I'm going to double my money. And when you start doing this strategy and you start looking on Poshmark more and more, you'll start seeing the same brands showing up again and again. And you'll really start to get a sense of, what are the brands that people are really searching for on Poshmark, and can I get them for cheaper on ThredUp? That is how I found this Elliot dress, for example. This one was brand new with tags, and when I checked Poshmark, there was none currently listed in this size, and there were a ton that were sold. That's also another key indicator, is you're looking for things that have low volume listed, high volume sold. I ended up paying $54 for this dress, which was very scary for me because that is a lot of money to spend on one piece of inventory. However, it definitely paid off because I sold it for $125 in just 22 days. So I was able to double my money and make a really nice profit and a really good sale. I will also say you want to pay attention to things like size as well. This dress was in an extra large, which was another thing that was really going for it. If it was in a smaller size, I might have been more hesitant to pick it up, because I do tend to find that things in larger sizes are just in lower volume on platforms like Poshmark, which makes them higher demand. Now, I've also used this strategy of just looking for brands that I want to sell and trying to find things that are priced low with swimwear. I've been absolutely loving selling swimwear this season, like spring going into summer. I sold a ton of swimwear, and most of it I found on ThredUp. Typically, I will filter by new with tags because I do not want to sell used swimwear. I just find it's a lot harder to sell for obvious reasons. Like, that's why there's a hygienic liner when you try on swimwear. People just like to know that it hasn't been used before typically. So I only look for new with tag swimwear. And then I look for, again, those brands that are selling on Poshmark over and over and over again. One such brand is Monday Swimwear. I absolutely love selling this brand. It has become one of my favorite brands to sell, and I've gotten all of it on ThredUp. One example is this set. It was this really cute orange set, size extra large. Again, larger sizes do really well. I paid $29 for it total. These were actually sold as separates on ThredUp, so I found the two separate pieces, and I think one was $14 and one was $15, so I paid about $29. And I sold the set together on Poshmark for $85, making my profit $38 on this piece. Another example was this new with tags Johnny Was skirted swimsuit. This was in a size 1X, which made it especially desirable in this style in particular. I paid $66 for this, which was definitely very steep, but it sold for $135 on Poshmark, and it sold in less than a month. So I made $42 profit. It didn't quite hit the threshold of doubling my money, but when I got the $135 offer, I decided to just go ahead and accept it because it was peak swimsuit season. And instead of holding out for an extra like $10 or $15, I just felt like, let me recoup my money, make $40 profit, and move on. So I do think that it's not a hard and fast rule. Like, once I have the piece in my inventory, I can decide if I want to sell it for less than doubling my money. But overall, when I'm evaluating a piece to decide if I want to buy it, I'm making sure I think I can sell it for a price that will double my money. And I do think that I could have sold this Johnny Was swimsuit for a price that would have doubled my money. I just wanted to accept an offer because I had invested a lot of money in that piece, and I was ready to just recoup the money and make a good profit and move on. So I still count that one as a success. Now, I want to be very clear here that the lesson that I'm trying to teach you is not necessarily that you should go out and source these exact brands. I'm just trying to show you the process of how you can find things that you could source yourself. Now I want to go through a couple of fails that I've had, because not every single thing I've bought on ThredUp has been a resounding success. So one example is this Beach Riot Akira one-piece swimsuit. I think it is so cute. It was new with tags as well. However, I realized after I bought it that the comps on this specific swimsuit were not as great as I thought they were. and I ended up accepting an offer of $80. I had paid $52 for this, so I pretty much just recouped my investment. I barely made any profit on it. But once I had the piece in inventory and I realized that it wasn't going to get as much as I originally thought it was going to get, at that point, I want to just accept a reasonable offer that helps me recoup my money and then put the money back into better inventory. But I want to also add in here another Beach Riot example because it wasn't necessarily a brand issue. So this other Beach Riot one piece that I bought I got it for $34 and I sold it for $90. So I earned $72 back and doubled my money. So my takeaway here is that sometimes it's not that the piece won't sell, and oftentimes it's not that the piece won't sell. You will find so much amazing inventory on ThredUp that you would love to sell. It's just sometimes the price is too high. So this one was a good example of, at that lower price point, it was definitely worth it. And at the higher price point, I should have left it behind. And another example I want to share in this section is this Bowden Nuitag swimsuit. This was a size 16-18, which again, I really like selling larger sizes. I paid $22.50 for this swimsuit, and I thought I could sell it for closer to $60, but I ended up getting an offer for $45, and I did go ahead and accept it because it seemed pretty on par with other sold comps. So I made about $14 in profit on this sale. Not a disaster by any means, but not something that I would repeat. The bigger lesson to me is that retail arbitrage isn't always just about finding expensive brands. It's really about finding things that are priced in such a way that you can really manage your risk and keep your margins intact and get that profit that you're looking for, all while balancing the opportunity cost of a bad buy, which is, again, not just the money that you've sunk into it, but the fact that you can't then use that money on other inventory. So just to recap where things stand on my ThredUp retail arbitrage, I've spent a total of $1,025.31 on ThredUp. I've purchased 41 items, making my average cost of goods per item about $25. I've sold 21 of those items, meaning I have 20 items remaining to sell. I've generated $1,267 in revenue, which translates to about $1,006 in earnings. My average sales price per thrifted item on ThredUp is $60. If I sell each item that I have remaining, so 20 items left, at my average ThredUp sales price of $60, I will still make an additional $1,206. And if you just take out the $19 left to cover my cost of goods for the entire haul, that will leave me with $1,187 in pure profit. Even on the low end, if I sell everything for just $40, I'll still make over $800 in profit from all of this inventory. I do track all of this data using my spreadsheet that I created and launched as a digital product. If you're interested, I'll have the link in the description down below in this video. And I will also link up above my video explaining my spreadsheet and walking you through it so you can see if it might be helpful to you in your business. But I do find that, especially when I'm making videos like this, it's really helpful to have all of my data in one place. And it just helps me kind of keep track of everything and make sure that I'm on track, especially when I'm doing retail arbitrage and I'm spending all this extra money. I want to make sure I'm tracking the cost of each item really diligently so that I know if it was profitable and whether or not I should buy it next time. So check out that spreadsheet if you're in the market for a way to kind of make your own inventory system a little bit more organized. I hope that this video was helpful. If you're interested in trying out ThredUp, I would highly recommend it. I've been, like I said, using it for a couple months now as a supplement to my thrifting, and I definitely will continue to use ThredUp and source on there. I think it's just a really great opportunity for resellers to get some more inventory in their closet without having to necessarily go to the thrift store, especially if you, like me, have a full-time job and you can't necessarily thrift every single week. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please give this video a thumbs up and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.